It was supposed to be a routine interview, a Thursday evening in March 1971. The lights were hot, the cameras were rolling, and Muhammad Ali had no idea what was waiting for him. The studio audience of 200 people buzzed with excitement. They had come to see the most famous athlete in the world, the man who called himself the greatest, the man who had given up everything for what he believed. But the host had a different plan. Before we continue, tell us where you're watching from. If you enjoy stories like this, subscribe to the channel. Tomorrow we have another incredible story for you. Richard Hartley sat behind his desk shuffling his notes. He was a veteran interviewer, 15 years on television. But tonight felt different. Tonight he was going to make headlines. His producers had told him the ratings were down. They needed something controversial. And Hartley had decided that Muhammad Ali was the perfect target. In his notes, one word was circled 3 times. Cassius. He refused to use Ali's chosen name. He had prepared questions designed to trap him. Questions about his faith. Questions about the draft. Questions meant to make Ali look bad. Hartley smiled to himself. This loudmouth needs to be put in his place, he thought. But what Richard Hartley didn't know was that someone else was watching. In the green room, a small television flickered with the studio feed. A man sat alone, preparing for his own segment. His name was Bruce Lee. Bruce was there to promote his new film. He had just returned from Hong Kong, where he had finally found the success that Hollywood denied him. He was supposed to wait quietly until his turn. But as he watched the monitor, something caught his attention. He saw the way Hartley was looking at Ali. He recognized that look. Bruce Lee had spent years being told he was too Chinese for American audiences. He had been passed over for roles that went to white actors. He knew what it felt like to be judged before you even opened your mouth. His jaw tightened. He kept watching, and in just a few minutes, Bruce Lee would do something no one expected. Richard Hartley had been planning this interview for weeks. He saw it as his chance to become relevant again, and he believed that taking down Muhammad Ali would remind everyone why he mattered. He knew Ali had been banned from boxing for nearly 4 years. He knew Ali had been stripped of his title simply because he refused to fight in a war he didn't believe in. To Hartley, this made Ali vulnerable, an easy target. What Hartley didn't understand was that Ali had faced far worse than a television interview. He had faced death threats. He had faced an entire country telling him he was wrong, and he was still standing. Ali arrived at the studio that evening wearing a simple grey suit. No entourage, just a man walking into a building. The staff whispered as he passed. Even now, Muhammad Ali made people nervous. He didn't know about the trap waiting for him, but it wouldn't have changed anything. Ali had learned that you can't control what others do. You can only control how you respond. Meanwhile, in the green room, Bruce Lee stood close to the monitor, arms crossed. A production assistant popped her head in. "Mr. Lee, you're on in 20 minutes. Can I get you anything?" Bruce shook his head, never taking his eyes off the screen. "No, I'm fine." But he wasn't fine. He could feel something building, the same feeling he had when Hollywood producers dismissed him, the same feeling he had when they told him Americans weren't ready for a Chinese leading man. He watched Hartley shuffle his papers. He watched the audience applaud as Ali walked onto the stage, and he watched Hartley's eyes. There was no warmth in them, only calculation. Bruce had seen that look before, and he knew exactly what was coming. The red light blinked on. The interview began, and Richard Hartley smiled the smile of a man who thought he was about to win. Hartley leaned forward in his chair. His voice was warm, but his eyes were cold. "Welcome to the show, Cassius," he said. The name hung in the air. Ali's expression didn't change. He had heard this before, 100 times, 1,000 times. "Muhammad Ali," he said calmly. "That's my name." Hartley waved his hand. Of course. Cassius, Muhammad, whatever you prefer." A few people in the audience laughed nervously. Ali just smiled. He knew the game. He had been playing it his whole life. "Let's talk about the draft," Hartley continued. "You refuse to serve your country. Some people call you a coward. What do you say to them?" Ali took a breath. His voice was steady. "I ain't got no quarrel with them, Viet Cong. I'm not going 10,000 miles to drop bombs on brown people while my own people are treated like dogs right here at home." The audience shifted, some nodded, others frowned. Hartley saw his opening. "That's very poetic," Hartley said with a smirk, "but real Americans fight for their country. Real Americans don't hide behind religion." Ali's eyes narrowed slightly, but his voice stayed calm. "Real Americans also get denied a drink of water because of the colour of their skin. I know. It happened to me. Right after I won the Olympic gold medal for this country." The studio went quiet. Hartley pressed on. "Let's talk about this Muslim thing," he said. "You changed your name. You follow a religion most Americans don't understand. Don't you think that's divisive?" Ali leaned back in his chair. "Cassius Clay was a slave name. I didn't choose it. Muhammad Ali is a free name. A free man doesn't need permission to choose his own name." Hartley laughed, not a polite laugh, a mocking laugh. "The greatest," he said, making air quotes with his fingers. "You really believe that, don't you? Some people say you're just a loud—" He stopped himself, but the word he almost said hung in the air, like smoke. The audience froze. 200 people held their breath. The cameraman glanced at the producer. No one moved. Ali stared at Hartley. His face was calm, but something in his eyes had changed. And in the green room, Bruce Lee stood up. A producer grabbed his arm. "Mr. Lee, your segment is next. Please wait here." Bruce looked at the man, then he looked at the monitor, then he looked back at the man. "I'm going out there now." He walked toward the studio floor. No one tried to stop him again. Bruce Lee stepped onto the studio floor. The audience saw him first. Whispers rippled through the crowd. Hartley turned, confused. "Mr. Lee," Hartley said, trying to regain control, "your segment is scheduled for—" "I think it's now," Bruce said quietly. He walked past the cameras, past the crew members who stood frozen. He sat down in the empty chair next to Muhammad Ali. The two men looked at each other. They had never met before this night, but in that moment something passed between them, a recognition. Two warriors who had fought the same battle in different arenas. Ali gave a small nod. Bruce nodded back. Hartley's face had gone pale. "Mr. Lee, this is highly irregular. We have a schedule—" "I've been watching from backstage," Bruce said. His voice was calm, measured, but there was steel underneath. "I've heard enough." He turned to face Hartley directly. "You called this man by the wrong name. On purpose. You mocked his faith. You questioned his courage. And just now, you almost called him something that would have ended your career." Hartley opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Bruce continued. "I've spent my whole life being told I'm too Chinese for America, that my face doesn't belong on American screens, that audiences won't accept me. And every time someone like you laughs at someone like us, you prove exactly why we have to keep fighting." The studio was silent. 200 people, not a single sound. "This man," Bruce said, gesturing to Ali, "gave up his title, his money, his prime years, for what he believed. That's not cowardice, that's courage most people will never understand." Ali placed a hand on Bruce's shoulder. Then he turned to Hartley. "You've been calling me Cassius Clay all night. Let me tell you something about names." His voice was low, powerful. Every word landed like a punch. "Cassius Clay was a slave name. I didn't choose it. I didn't want it. Muhammad Ali is a free name. And a free man doesn't need your permission to exist." He leaned forward slightly. "You wanted me to get angry tonight, to play the angry black man for your cameras. but I learned something a long time ago. He paused. Let the silence build. The man who views the world at 50 the same as he did at 20 has wasted 30 years of his life. Maybe it's time you learned something too. The words echoed in the studio. Hartley sat frozen behind his desk. His notes were untouched, his prepared questions useless. The audience didn't applaud. They didn't need to. They knew they had witnessed something rare, something that would stay with them forever. Bruce and Ali sat side by side, two legends. One moment, a producer signalled frantically, "Cut to commercial, now." Hartley's voice cracked. We'll be right back." The red light went off. The cameras stopped rolling, but no one moved. Ali extended his hand to Bruce. "Thank you, brother." Bruce shook it firmly. "We fight the same fight, different arenas." Ali smiled. For the first time that night, it was a real smile. "Float like a butterfly." Bruce smiled back. "Be like water." They both laughed, a quiet laugh, the laugh of two men who understood each other completely. Behind them, Richard Hartley sat alone at his desk. His hands were shaking. He stared at nothing. The trap he had set so carefully had collapsed, and in its place stood something he had never expected. Two men, standing together, unbroken. During the commercial break, the studio transformed. Crew members approached Ali and Bruce with tears in their eyes, handshakes, whispered words of gratitude. One young cameraman said quietly, "That was the most real thing I've ever seen on television." Hartley didn't move from his chair. He sat alone while the world shifted around him. His carefully prepared notes lay untouched on his desk. Everything he had planned was gone. The producer was already on the phone. Network executives were calling. Word had spread fast. Something had happened on live television that no one could ignore. When the cameras came back on, Hartley was different. His confidence was gone. His smirk had disappeared. He looked at Ali and spoke slowly. "Mr. Ali, Mohammed, I apologize." Ali nodded. His voice was calm but firm. "Apology is a start. Action is what follows." Bruce added quietly, "Respect isn't given because of fear. It's earned through understanding." Hartley didn't respond. He just nodded. The rest of the interview was short. No more trick questions. No more mockery. Something had broken in him. Or maybe something had finally opened. The show ended without the usual fanfare. No jokes, no cheerful goodbyes. Just silence and the weight of what had happened. By the next morning, the clip was everywhere. Newspapers ran headlines across the country. Bruce Lee defends Ali on live TV. Two legends silence racist host. The story spread from coast to coast. In black communities and Asian communities, people talked about what they had seen. Two men from different worlds had stood together. Two men who faced the same hatred had refused to be divided by it. Letters poured into the network. Most of them were angry at Hartley, but some were different. Some people wrote to say they had never thought about racism the way Ali and Bruce described it. Some said they were ashamed of what they had believed. Within weeks, Hartley's show was cancelled. The network called it a format change. Everyone knew the truth, but the story didn't end there. Years later, in an interview, Hartley spoke about that night. His voice was different now, humble. "I thought I was doing my job," he said. "I was wrong. I looked at Muhammad Ali and saw what I was told to see. Bruce Lee showed me what I was missing." His career in television never recovered, but something else happened. He spent his retirement volunteering at community centres, teaching young people about respect, about listening. "That night," he said, "two men taught me more than 30 years in television ever did." After the studio emptied, Ali and Bruce left together. They walked to a small diner a few blocks away. Two of the most famous men in the world, sitting at a simple table, drinking coffee and tea. They talked for hours. about their struggles, about the doors that had been closed to them, about the people who had told them they didn't belong. Ali shook his head slowly. Hollywood won't let you be a leading man. Bruce nodded. They tell me America isn't ready for a Chinese hero. Ali laughed softly. They told me America wasn't ready for a black champion who speaks his mind. Bruce smiled. So what do we do? Ali looked at him. We show them anyway. When they finally left the diner, a reporter was waiting outside, camera flashing, notebook ready. Mr. Lee, Mr. Ali, any comment on what happened tonight? Bruce looked at Ali, then back at the reporter. The only way to deal with prejudice is to face it directly, not with violence, with truth. Ali grinned. And if truth doesn't work, I got a left hook. They both laughed. The reporter captured the moment. Two legends standing together under a streetlight, laughing like old friends. Months later, Bruce returned to Hong Kong to continue filming. He kept a photo from that night in his notebook. Before the release of his film Fist of Fury, a telegram arrived. It was from Ali. Float like a butterfly, sting like a dragon. Bruce framed it and hung it on his wall. They never met again. Bruce Lee died in July 1973, just weeks before Enter the Dragon made him a global icon. He was only 32 years old. But Ali never forgot that night. Years later, when asked about Bruce Lee, his eyes would soften. Bruce understood. Ali said, we were both fighting the same enemy, just with different weapons. He paused, then added quietly, racism has many faces, but so does courage. Muhammad Ali went on to reclaim his heavyweight title, not once but twice more. The man they tried to silence became the most beloved athlete on the planet. In 1996, he stood before the world at the Atlanta Olympics, lighting the torch with hands that trembled from Parkinson's disease. The same man who was once called a traitor was now called a hero. Bruce Lee's films broke records across the globe. Enter the Dragon became the first Hollywood movie with an Asian American lead. He proved that audiences were ready. They had always been ready. It was Hollywood that needed to catch up. The clip from that night in 1971 resurfaced decades later. New generations discovered it online. They shared it with captions like, "This is what real courage looks like." Students studied it in classrooms. People quoted it in speeches. The lesson wasn't about fighting back with fists. It was about standing up with dignity, about choosing truth over anger, about finding strength in unity instead of division. Richard Hartley wanted to humiliate Muhammad Ali that night. Instead, he witnessed something rare. Two men from different worlds, facing the same hatred, choosing grace over rage. Ali could have exploded. Bruce could have stayed silent. But together they showed that true power doesn't need to shout. It just needs to speak truth. Some battles are won with fists, some are won with words, and some are won simply by refusing to become what your enemies expect. Be like water, float like a butterfly, but most of all, be yourself. If this story of courage, dignity, and standing together moved you, subscribe and hit that like button. Share this with anyone who has ever been judged for who they are. Have you ever witnessed someone stand up against prejudice? Tell us your story in the comments. And don't forget to ring that notification bell for more stories of legends who refuse to be silenced.